The rain on planet Varel 9 never stopped. Jace, a human private investigator, sat inside a dark alien bar, staring at his empty credit chip. He hadn't eaten in 2 days, and his last client disappeared without paying him. He was about to leave when a tall alien entered. His presence silencing the room, everyone moved aside as the alien walked toward Jace. He was covered in dark robes, but the smell of wealth and power followed him. He sat without asking, looked at Jace with glowing red eyes, and said, "You're human, cheap, and desperate." Jace didn't argue. Because it was true, the alien placed a small hologram on the table, and an image of a woman appeared, her face hidden by a hood. "This is my wife," the alien said. "She ran away. I want you to find her," he continued. "Bring her back alive or dead, doesn't matter to me." Jace stared at the hologram, confused. "If she's your wife, why don't you go after her yourself?" he asked. The alien's face twisted slightly. "Because if I go, everyone knows. And I don't want that. This needs to be quiet," he said, leaning closer, "and humans know how to stay quiet." Then he slid a payment card across the table. Jace picked it up and scanned it with his old device. His eyes widened. The amount was enough to pay his debt and buy a ship. All this just to find one woman. Jace asked, now suspicious. The alien leaned back and crossed his arms. "She's dangerous," he said. "Not because she can fight, but because she knows things about me. She could ruin everything I built." Jace knew he should say no. He knew this job smelled bad, like betrayal, secrets, and blood, but he was starving. And humans didn't live long on Varelnine without money, so he nodded slowly. "Fine, I'll find her," before leaving. The alien said one last thing: "If you fall for her tricks, you'll die, just like the last guy." Then he was gone. Disappearing into the rain like a ghost, Jace took the hologram and left the bar. He walked down the wet streets, thinking. About the job, there was something strange. The photo only showed her back. Her face turned away. Why hide her face from the one supposed to find her? He returned to his small room and started scanning databases. The name given to him was Solara, but it didn't show up in any legal record. There were a few unofficial mentions, mostly in connection to high-end parties and elite alien circles. One image stood out, blurry and low quality, but enough to tell she wasn't fully alien. Her body shape was human-like, her hands slim, her height average for a human woman. Jace leaned closer, whispering, "Who are you really, Solara?" He knew then that this wasn't just a runaway wife. There was a bigger story hiding behind her hood. Next morning, he booked a flight to a nearby moon colony. One of the few leads mentioned, she was last seen boarding a freighter headed that way. The ship was old and smelled like burned wires, but Jace didn't care. He stared out the window, replaying the alien boss's words in his head. "Bring her back, dead or alive." That line chilled him. He wasn't a killer, not anymore, but for that kind of money, would he become one again? The flight landed on a dusty mining moon with only one town. Jace checked into a quiet motel and asked around carefully. Most aliens here didn't trust humans, but a few hinted they had seen someone matching figure. "She trades at night," one vendor whispered. "Never shows her face. Always wears a long cloak." That night, Jace stayed awake, watching from the shadows. The town was dark and quiet. Only a few lights glowing. Suddenly, a figure appeared moving fast between buildings, covered in a hood. She carried a small bag and moved like someone who didn't want to be seen. Jace followed at a distance, his heart beating faster. Could this be her? Was this the alien boss's missing wife? She stopped at a locked door, looked around nervously, then disappeared inside. Jace didn't move, just watched the door, waiting for morning. He had found her, but what now? He had a job, a payment, and a dangerous employer. But that hooded woman, She didn't look like a threat. She looked like someone running from something far worse. And for the first time, Jace wondered, was he the hunter in this story, or the pawn in someone else's game? The next morning, Jace stood in front of the old metal door where the hooded woman had vanished the night before. The building looked abandoned, walls cracked, roof half broken. And not a sound came from inside. He waited, watching from across the street, pretending to be a lazy traveler resting against a power post. Hours passed, the twin sons of the moon rising higher, burning his skin, but he didn't move. Finally, around mid-afternoon, the door creaked open. A small, cloaked figure stepped out. Glancing left and right with sharp, cautious eyes, she walked quickly. Hugging her bag close to her chest, boots moving with silent steps. Jace didn't follow right away. He let her go ahead, counting 10 seconds in his mind. Then he moved, slow and quiet. She weaved through the dusty town, avoiding crowds, never staying in open space for too long. Jace could tell she had done this many times. Whoever she was hiding from, she was good at it. She entered a tiny marketplace near the back of town. The stalls were half empty, selling dry fruit, alien trinkets, and old tech scraps. She spoke softly to a vendor, trading something from her bag. Jace caught a glimpse. Looked like a necklace made from star, a very expensive mineral. The vendor gave her food and some water flasks, not asking any questions. Then she disappeared into the alley again. Jace followed, careful not to be seen. She stopped suddenly, her body freezing like a hunted animal. Jace stepped back into the shadows, holding his breath. But she didn't turn. She only pressed herself against the wall and listened. After a few seconds, she moved again, faster this time. She was scared. That much was clear. Jace decided it was time. He quickened his pace, reached the alley, and called out softly, "Solara." The woman stopped instantly, her shoulders tightening. She turned around slowly, her hood still hiding most of her face. He raised his hands to show he meant no harm. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said, voice calm, "but someone hired me to find you." For a moment, nothing happened. Then she pulled back her hood, just enough to show her eyes. They were not fully alien. They were warm, brown, full of fear, but also something else. Pain. Her lips parted slightly, and her voice came out soft and broken. "Are you going to take me back to him?" Jace stepped closer, heart beating faster. "Why did you run?" he asked. "Help me understand." She looked away, her voice cracking. "Because I was never his wife. I was his prisoner," she said, dressed up and shone like a trophy. "But I had no choice, no freedom." He saw it now, the way her hands trembled, the bruises hidden under her sleeves. She wasn't lying. She didn't have the eyes of a criminal. She had the eyes of someone trying to survive. He lowered his hands, nodding slowly. "I believe you." She studied him carefully, unsure whether to trust him. "You're the first human I've seen in years," she whispered. He offered her a place to rest, promising safety. Hush. No tricks, no cuffs. She followed him back to the motel in silence. Inside the small room, she sat by the window, barely touching the food he gave her. Jace didn't push. He waited, letting the silence fill the space. Finally, she spoke again. "I used to dream of flying away," she said, "of being free, of seeing the stars without a chain on my ankle." Jace said nothing. He knew too well the feeling of being trapped. Even without chains, she looked at him with cautious hope. "If you send me back, I die," she said simply. "Maybe not right away, but it will come." He leaned against the wall, staring at the floor. This was not the job he thought it would be. It wasn't about money anymore. It was about choosing between the easy path and the right one. He looked up at her. Her cloak was gone now, and her long hair fell loosely around her shoulders. She looked more human than alien, and more tired than dangerous. She had no weapons, no tricks, only scars. Jace stood and walked toward the window, looking out at the quiet street below. "If you want to run," he said, "I'll help you." Solara turned to him, eyes wide, shocked. "You would do that?" she asked, almost not believing. Jace nodded. "I don't work for monsters. Not anymore." She smiled, just barely, the first real smile he'd seen from her. Outside, the wind blew dust down the empty road, but inside, for the first time, she felt safe, and he, for the first time in a long while, felt like he was doing something good, but unknown to both of them. Someone had already seen them enter the room together, and far away, a silent message had been sent. "Target located." It said, "Proceeding with retrieval." Rain fell sideways as the storm rolled across the planet's surface. Jace stood under the motel roof, staring at the dark sky. Something didn't feel right. The streets were too empty, the air too still. He'd been hunted before, and he could feel it now. Eyes in the shadows, waiting inside the room. Solara was folding the blanket carefully, like it mattered. Like neat corners could stop her heart from racing. She was used to being on the run. But something about this felt different. She wasn't alone this time, and that scared her more than being chased ever did. Jace stepped back in and closed the door gently. "You feel it too?" she asked without turning. He nodded. "They know where you are." She didn't ask how. They both understood someone had followed him. There was no more time to rest. Jace grabbed his gear. A small pack, a burner blaster, and an old map module. "Pack light," he told her. "We leave now." Solara didn't hesitate. Her fingers moved fast, used to fleeing without goodbyes. But just before she left the room, she turned and took one last look. "I almost felt safe here," she whispered. They moved through the alleys like ghosts. The storm helped, masking their scent, their heat, their sounds. But it wouldn't last. Jace led her to an old freight tunnel below the city. It smelled like oil and rust, but it was the only way out. Unseen, halfway through, they heard footsteps. Not many, just one, slow and steady. Someone was following them, alone. Jace motioned for silence and ducked behind a broken crate. Solara crouched beside him, holding her breath. A tall figure appeared, armored in black, visor glowing red. Not one of the boss's usual guards. This one was different, professional, expensive, and very, very patient. The kind of hunter who never missed. Jace whispered, "Keep going to the exit. Don't stop." Solara shook her head. "He'll shoot you." "I know," he said, "but he'll chase the bigger prize. And that's you." She didn't want to go. But his eyes said no argument would change his mind. She ran, her footsteps soft, fading into the tunnel ahead. The hunter raised his weapon and followed. Jace stepped out from hiding, shouting, "Hey, metalhead, pick on someone with worse luck." The hunter turned, and the blast came fast. Jace rolled, fired back, missed on purpose to draw him further in. Blaster fire lit the dark tunnel like lightning. Jace dove behind another crate chest. Pounding, lungs burning. He wasn't a soldier anymore, but old instincts returned fast. He tossed a flare down the far hallway, watched the hunter follow it. Then he vanished into a maintenance shaft, bleeding from his arm. Solara was waiting near the exit, her face pale. "You're hurt," she said, helping him stand. "I've had worse," he lied. She didn't believe him, but didn't push it. They climbed out through a forgotten grate and into the lower streets of the next district. It was a city built underground, lit by glowing stones and powered by stolen tech. The people here didn't ask questions, didn't talk to outsiders, perfect for hiding. Jace found an old contact who owed him a favor and secured a room with no windows. That night, Solara sat by the small lamp, holding a steaming cup of tea she barely sipped. "Why are you helping me?" she asked again. Jace looked at her. Really looked. She wasn't trying to charm him. She wasn't playing any game. She was just tired of running, he answered honestly. Because no one helped me when I needed it. She nodded slowly, letting the silence speak. Then she said something he didn't expect. There's something you should know. He leaned forward, alert. She took a deep breath. Before I escaped, I stole something from him. Jace's heart sank. Something valuable? He asked. She shook her head. Something dangerous from her small bag. She pulled out a silver cube, humming softly with energy. The boss didn't just want me back because I embarrassed him, she said. He wants this. Jace stared at it, knowing in that moment that the job was now much more than a search mission. He wasn't just protecting a runaway wife. He was now caught in the middle of something powerful, something deadly. And the worst part, he was starting to care too much outside, across the rooftops. The red-eyed hunter crouched silently, watching. The faint glow from their window and whispering into his comms, "They're together," he said. "Orders." He woke up with a knife at his throat. The blade was cold, sharp, and held by a hand that didn't shake. Jace didn't move, his eyes focusing on the attacker's face. But it wasn't a stranger, with Solara. Her face was pale, her hair wild, and her hand trembled just slightly now that he was awake. "You were talking in your sleep," she whispered, voice low. "You said his name." Jace slowly reached up and pushed the blade away, careful not to startle her. "Vorkath is always in my head lately," he said, sitting up. "I wasn't giving you away." Solara looked ashamed, lowering the knife and stepping back. "I can't afford to trust anyone completely," she said. "Not even you." He didn't argue with her. He understood. They were both living on borrowed time, but time was running short. A loud thud echoed outside the shelter. Jace stood instantly, gun already in hand. Solara backed into the corner, her eyes scanning the walls. They both knew what that sound meant. Someone had landed nearby, and it wasn't a traitor. Jace peeked. Through a crack in the metal wall, he saw boots, black and heavy, 5 of them moving in sync. The symbol on their shoulder was clear Vorkath's mark. Jace turned to Solara, whispering fast. "There's no more running. We hold them here." She nodded, pulling a small blaster from her bag. "I'll buy you time," she said. Jace grabbed her arm. Firm but gentle. "No, we do this together." The first blast shook the wall, sending dust and sparks through the air. Jace fired back, hitting one soldier in the leg. Solara ducked behind a broken table, sending pulses of light through the doorway. The enemy didn't hesitate, pushing in like a wave. 2 were down, but one slipped through the side and tackled Jace hard. They crashed through a metal cabinet, weapons sliding across the floor. The soldier raised his knife butt. Solara fired, the bolt catching him in the chest. He dropped without a sound. Jace gasped for air. Blood in his mouth, Solara knelt beside him, her hands shaking as she pressed cloth to the wound. "You're not dying," she said. "Not now." More footsteps outside, reinforcements. They were surrounded. Jace forced himself up, limping to the back door. "We can't fight them all," he said, "but I know a place." They slipped out the back, crawling through a sewage tunnel that led beneath the city. The stench was horrible, but it saved their lives, for now. Hours later, in a dark cave far from the burning shelter, Jace lay on the ground, breathing hard. Solara pressed against him, holding a cloth to his side where the blade had cut deep. "I thought I lost you," she said softly. "I thought I was the one supposed to protect you," he replied with a weak grin. She leaned closer, resting her forehead against his. "I never asked for a protector," she said. I don't want to be alone anymore." Jace closed his eyes, feeling her warmth. Everything hurt his body, his mind, his heart. But something about her voice eased the pain. Like maybe it was worth it. Suddenly, her communicator buzzed from inside her coat. She looked at him, unsure. Jace nodded. Answer it. She pressed the button. And a voice crackled through. Solara, if you're hearing this, you've got one chance left. It was Vorkuth. His voice calm, cruel, controlled. Turn yourself in, and I'll let your little human live. Jace opened his eyes, staring into hers. Solara's hand clenched around the device. You're lying, she said to the voice. You never let anyone live. Vorkuth's voice continued. I've already sent the footage to every sector, he said. By now, everyone knows you've taken up with a human. You're not a princess anymore, Solara. You're property that's been touched. The line went dead. Jace sat up. Wiping blood from his mouth, Solara looked frozen, trembling. I'll go back, she whispered. You won't, he said. We'll go forward outside the cave. The sky turned red with warning lights. The hunters were still coming, but so was something else, the truth, and maybe even freedom. She was gone when he woke up. Jace sat up fast, pain shooting through his ribs. He reached for his side, still wet with blood, and looked around the dark cave, empty bedroll, dying fire. No sign of her footprints. Just a folded cloth on the floor, with a message written in faded ink. Forgive me, I had to protect you the only way I know how. He crushed the note in his fist. His breath was heavy, his heart heavier. Solara had gone back to Vorkath to trade herself for him. Jace stood, grabbed his pack, and limped out of. The cave rain slammed against his face as he climbed the rocky ridge. He didn't care about pain, not anymore. All he saw was the image of her being dragged into a dark ship. Alone by nightfall, he reached the edge of an old rebel outpost, a place filled with broken weapons, rusted ships, and people with nothing left to lose. He had one thing to trade: Vorkuth's secret, the stolen footage Solara had given him. The proof of Vorkuth's crimes. A tall alien woman stepped forward, her eyes like fire. Who the hell are you? She asked, voice sharp. I'm the one holding the key to your freedom, Jace said, and I want your help to break into the most protected ship in this system. She stared at him for a moment, then laughed. You're either insane or already dead, she said. Both, he replied, and I'm not leaving without her. Inside the rebel base, old screens lit up as the footage played. Aliens gasped, cursed, some even cried. They had lost families to the deals Vorkuth had made. Now they saw it, all the faces, the names, the lies. The rebel leader watched the screen in silence. When it ended, she turned to Jace and said, You get one team, one shot. That night, Jace sat alone, staring at the stars. He didn't know if Solara was still alive, but he had no doubt she had turned herself in to protect him. And now he was going to do something no one had ever dared. He was going to attack Vorkath's flagship. With 10 rebels, broken gear, and a heart full of fire, it was suicide, but love had already killed the fear in him. All that remained now was the mission. The next day, they launched under cover of a dust storm. The plan was simple: get in, grab her, get out. But no plan survives contact with the enemy, especially when the enemy already knows you're coming. They reached the ship's outer hull and slipped in through a maintenance shaft. Inside, everything was metal and silence. The halls were filled with red lights and sharp corners. Every step echoed like a scream. Jace held his breath as they reached the control center. The door opened, no guards, no alarms, just a voice through the speaker. I was hoping you'd come, Vorkath said calmly. She's been waiting for you. Jace pushed forward, past the others. Solara stood in the center of the room, unchained, untouched, but something was wrong. She looked at him like she didn't know him. Solara? He said carefully. She didn't move, didn't speak. Then Vorkath stepped out from the shadows behind her, his hand on her shoulder, like a master reminding his pet where she belonged. She made a deal. He said, her life for yours, her silence for your freedom. Jace's fingers tightened around his weapon. "You can't break someone like her," he growled. Vorkith smirked. "I didn't have to." He pressed a button, and a pulse shot through the room. Jace dropped to his knees, pain screaming through every nerve. Behind him, his rebel team fell one by one. Vorkith leaned close to Jace, his breath cold. "You came here thinking love was stronger than chains," he whispered. "Let me show you how wrong you were." But he didn't see Solara's hand move, didn't notice the tiny blade hidden under her sleeve, didn't feel the sting in his side until it was too late. He turned, stunned, staring at her. You would betray me." "I never stopped," she said. Vorkith stumbled back, bleeding, and in that chaos, Jace rose, ignoring the pain. He grabbed Solara's hand and ran, blasters firing, alarms blaring. They didn't look back, not even once. Because from that moment on, they knew there was no return, no mercy, no forgiveness. Only escape and each other. Smoke followed them down the narrow tunnel like a ghost that refused to let go. Jace held Solara's hand tightly as they ran. Behind them, red lights flashed and alarms screamed across the ship's halls. They didn't stop, not even when Jace's side bled again. Not even when Solara stumbled and nearly fell. There was no time, no second chance. The escape pod bay was close, just one level below. But when the blast doors slammed shut in front of them, Jace cursed under his breath. They were trapped, boxed. In with no map and no help, Solara looked at the control panel, her fingers dancing fast across alien keys. "It's locked down from the bridge," she said. "Vorkith's not dead yet." Jace looked around the corridor, searching for anything they could use. Then he spotted it, a small vent shaft leading down. "It's narrow," he said, "but it leads somewhere." She didn't argue. She just nodded and crawled in first. They slid down into darkness, the metal walls groaning under them when they dropped into the lower level. It was quiet, too quiet. They were in the maintenance bay. Full of broken bots and flickering lights, Solara checked the map on her wrist and whispered, "Pod launch chamber is behind that wall." Jace moved forward, blaster raised, and then the floor exploded beneath him. A blast knocked him in two. A pile of scrap. He tried to stand, but a heavy boot pinned him down. A guard Vorkith's elite towered over him with a metal mask and a glowing blade. Solara screamed and fired her weapon. The guard spun, blocking the shot with his blade. Jace rolled aside and shot upward, hitting the armored leg. The guard fell to one knee. At taste, Solara didn't hesitate. She stabbed the glowing blade deep into his back. He collapsed with a crash. Both of them stood there, breathing hard, shaking. Then Jace looked at her with something new in his eyes. "You didn't even blink," he said. Solara looked down at the blade and whispered, "I stopped blinking a long time ago." They reached the pod chamber, and Jace slammed the emergency code into the door panel. It opened slowly, revealing 3 old pods. One half broken, one missing panels. Only one looked flight-ready. Solara checked the systems. "This one will take us to orbit." Jace nodded, but then paused. What if he follows? Solara held up a small black disk, the same one Jace had once given her. "I reprogrammed the ship's AI," she said, "when we launch. It's going to send this entire ship straight into the nearest sun." Jace blinked, impressed. "You really thought of everything." "No," she whispered. "But I thought of what mattered most." They climbed into the pod, side by side, and hit the launch button. The ship rumbled beneath them as the pod ejected into space. Outside the window, stars spun past like sparks from a dying fire. They didn't speak for a while. Solara finally turned to him and said, "You should hate me, Jace." He looked at her, confused. "For what?" "For dragging you into this," she said. "For turning a simple job into a war." Jace gave a soft laugh. There's no such thing as a simple job anymore, he said. And I stopped following orders the moment I met you. Their pod drifted silently toward a rebel outpost orbiting a small moon. Safe, at least for now, but both of them knew peace never lasted. Solara leaned her head on his shoulder, eyes finally soft again. You think the galaxy will forgive us? She asked. Jace looked out at the stars and whispered, Doesn't matter. I already forgave myself the day I chose you, far behind them. Vorkith's flagship burned as the AI took control. The engines roared toward the sun, and a monster was erased in fire, but the real question was still waiting ahead. Now that they were free, what would they do next? Because freedom, like love, is easy to dream about, but hard to live with. The moment their escape pod touched down on the rebel moon, silence followed. Not peace, just the kind of silence that comes after running for too long. Jace stepped out first, his boots sinking into the soft white dust. Solara followed slowly, holding her stomach, eyes scanning the strange horizon. They were free, and yet something still pulled heavy in the air. The rebel base wasn't a fortress, just a small outpost hidden beneath a layer of rock and ice. Old satellite dishes turned to face unknown stars, and metal walls hummed quietly. Jace had expected soldiers, maybe weapons pointed at them. Instead, a single woman waited at the door, tall and scarred, wearing the crest of the rebellion. You're late, she said calmly, then turned and walked away inside. The base was colder than the outside. No warmth, no greetings. Just the quiet whisper of survival. They were taken to a room that looked more like a prison than a guest chamber. Solara sat on the edge of the metal bench, her hands folded tight. Jace stood by the door, ready for anything, and then the rebel commander entered. Holding a small data chip. You know what this is? She asked, tossing it onto the table. Jace didn't touch it, but he nodded. It's the last recording of Vorkith's voice, she said. We intercepted it before his ship burned. She played it aloud. The voice of the boss filled the room, broken and angry. If I can't have her, no one will, he said. And if the human thinks this is love, let him die in it. The commander stopped the playback and looked at them. You destroyed a tyrant, she said, and started a storm. Solara looked up, her voice clear despite the tension. Then let it storm. The rebels offered them protection, but with a price in exchange for safety. They wanted Solara to speak publicly, to become the face of freedom, the symbol of Vorkith's defeat. Jace didn't like it. He knew what happened when people became symbols. They stopped being people. But Solara said yes, because for once, her story might help someone else survive, and maybe, just maybe, rewrite the ending she never thought she'd live to see. Weeks passed, and Solara spoke to planets she would never visit, told the truth to those still hiding behind walls of silence. Jace stayed close, guarding her, but always in the background. He wasn't the hero, and he never wanted to be. One night, as they sat under the stars outside the rebel dome, Solara turned to him and said, Do you think it's over? Jace looked at the sky, then at her. No, he said softly. But I think we've finally started something better. She smiled, a real one this time, the kind that reached her eyes. I never wanted to be rescued, she whispered, but I'm glad it was you. Jace leaned back, the stars dancing above them like sparks from a dream. I never came here to fall in love, he said, but I'd do it all again. Suddenly, a small voice chirped from the comm on his wrist, signal coming in. It said, encrypted, no mark source. Jace opened it, expecting a trap. But what he heard made his heart stop. A child's voice, clear and soft. Mom. It said, Are you out there? Solara gasped, hands covering her mouth. I know that voice, she whispered, tears forming. It's him. It's my son. Jace turned to her, stunned. But you never told me he was taken from me before I escaped, she said. I thought he was lost. The signal grew stronger, and coordinates flashed on the screen. Somewhere out there, a child waited. Their child, her future. And now his too. Jace stood up slowly, helping her to her feet. The past was still behind them, but now something else pulled them forward. Not escape, not survival, but something simple and strong. Hope. And so they left the rebel base. This time not as fugitives, but as a family looking for something worth living for. Because the job had changed everything, but real love had changed them.